We're gonna bring this to order here.
I don't think you want to use the gavel, but you may have to.
I haven't had to use the
Everyone's so
gavel.
happy to be seeing people.
I know.
Look at them all.
All right, let's call to order the Boise Parks and Recreation Commission monthly meeting. We'll take attendance first.
Baber,
Here.
Potter,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Mazu. Here. Raber, Resiska,
Here.
Stidham,
Here.
Urban. Here.
Okay, and we've got a consent agenda. Just for the record, I think we've identified an error in item B. So the Boise River System permit should read CFH 22-00095 rather than 91. So just for the record, we'll make that correction. And with that, do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved. And now moving to new business, we have the minutes from September 15th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. And then we have 3 informational items, and I'll turn it over to Doug for those.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commission members. So our first item that we would like to just give the commission a quick briefing on is our Connect Our Parks update. And this is a very exciting program. You may have heard a little bit about it through the media. It's ARPA funding, ARPA funded project. And it really is something we have been long wanting to do in our park system. A number of cities across the country already have in their park and recreation system, all their parks fully Wi-Fi wired. And a number of cities actually have their entire cities that are fully Wi-Fi accessible for their citizens. We're a little bit behind on that in that it's something we've always wanted to do, at least in our parks, to make them more accessible to the public, but also make them more accessible to a lot of the special events that we have in the parks. Our IT team, I've asked Adam Reno, who's our IT infrastructure manager for our information technology department. He's the lead on this project. I'd asked Adam to come and say a few updated words on this project, but essentially this is really a good thing for the parks that we've identified. They are our higher used parks when it comes to special events, but they're also parks that are highly used by our citizens of all of our walks of citizens, from those that are one end of the spectrum that social economically are advantaged, and those that are on the other end of the spectrum that are not. And to provide an opportunity for everyone to have access to data in these parks is really important to creating a city for everyone, which is the mayor's vision for the city of Boise. So we've always wanted to also look at opportunities to do special education activities in these parks, and to do those utilizing technology is very difficult to do if you don't have Wi-Fi connection. It really has to start with that. And that is really a byproduct of something like this. The accessibility piece is number one. Making our parks more accessible to our entire citizenry is really the number one piece to this. And then, having our special event organizers having some access to Wi-Fi, making that easier on our IT team in setting up and taking down and providing that access is going to be a huge accomplishment for us. And then being able to look at, things like augmented reality and intellectual reality and some of those things that we can use with school sites to be able to create educational opportunities for kids in parks is also real important to us. So a lot of things are going to come out of this project. And we're starting with 3 parks that you see on the screen with Ann Morris and Cecil Andrus and Julia Davis. And I asked Adam to come, and I'm going to turn it over to Adam now and give you just a quick briefing on how we got to where we're at and what's going on right now to get them connected. And obviously in the future, we'd like to do more of this, but this one-time ARPA funding is making this possible to be able to do it now. And so we're excited that we're at least going to get some of our more highly used parks downtown put into this Wi-Fi mode. So Adam, take it away.
Okay, that's better, right? Hey, thanks for inviting me today. My name is Adam Reno, the IT infrastructure manager for the city of Boise. I do have a little bit of a back history with this project. It initially started out as kind of a beg, a plea to budget to help us out with all of the event prep and setup that we've done over the years. We would go in for 4th of July, for instance, and spend a couple of weeks getting everything kind of ready and set up and good to go, and then 4th of July would happen, which is, 4, 5, 6 hours worth of fun. And we'd be back the next day tearing that thing down. And then we'd do it again for Fit One, and we do it again for Pride Fest, and we do it again for et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it became kind of a hassle. And so we said, hey, is there a way that we can maybe put some permanent event infrastructure in these parks? Wouldn't that be awesome? Save my team a whole bunch of effort. We can have some things set up and are kind of ready to go and just sort of flip the switch and off we run. And there's other budget priorities at the time. And so that was denied. So I was really bummed out about that one. Then ARPA came around and all the broadband needs kind of came to fruition. We see things like folks at the libraries that sit out in the parking lot, and they'll hang out in the parking lot just to get the free wireless even before the library is open. And it's like, man, there's really a need for this. And so we coupled sort of event infrastructure with public broadband access together, and it became the ask for ARPA. And that went through, and it seemed like a really good idea. And that's something that we're working on today with, like Doug said, these 3 parks. So what we're planning on doing initially with those parks is right now we're building out all of the in-ground infrastructure in order for things to actually operate. There's conduit and pipe and fiber optics and network cabling and some other gear that you guys probably don't care about, but we're getting all of the basics kind of set up. Right after that part's done, the first part that'll go up is the wireless. So that one's pretty easy. So we're really excited to do that and see how that goes. It won't be wireless 100% coverage in the parks because the parks are absolutely enormous and that's really, really expensive to do. But we're hitting all of the hot spots that people kind of hang out. We work with parks, we work with police, we work with fire. Like, where do people hang out? What do you want to see for like event infrastructure support? So we're putting all those up, and we're hoping to have that done, fingers crossed, by next summer. So we're also, and Cecil Andrus, hoping to get some very basic services set up before the potato drop as well. So we know that's one that the vendors like to have some support. They rebroadcast that, and we'll probably partner with a local vendor in town to help with that. But we'll have that infrastructure there in order to help those guys out as well. So we're crossing our fingers that we'll have something for potato drop at Cecil Andrus. That one's a little bit smaller and easier to do. And then after that, we'll do a little bit of some technology, like Doug said, augmented reality. Maybe there's some kiosks. What can we do with like maybe a digital story walk? What can we do for like some of the other outdoor programs that the other departments wanted to do? Like library is interested in doing some outdoor programs in the park. Is there something that we can do with that? And there'll be an evaluation of all of those different technologies over the winter/spring. And then we'll make some determinations on which ones are best fits, what we can support, et cetera. And then we'll go ahead and install some of those as sort of a test bed to say, hey, we got some really great ideas here. You know, is there anything we can do for the public? Is there anything we can do to help save ourselves some time and some dollars from a smart park technology standpoint? And then I think the future is kind of wide open. So we're really excited. It's not often, like I said, IT gets a chance to really do something for the public. We're usually supporting internal departments like parks, but now we're actually doing something for the public. So we're really excited for that one. That's my update. I'll stand for questions if you guys have any.
Thanks, Adam. Any questions? No.
I'm curious. Yeah. What will it look like? There'll be towers for these things?
No, they're actually fairly innocuous. Is that the word I'm looking for? They'll be a little bit kind of blending into the environment. Usually they're a white box about yay big, and they'll be high up on a pole, and so you won't necessarily see them. We've actually done some pretty snazzy things. If we get any kind of complaints, we can actually wrap them with like a wrap, kind of blend them in so they look like trees. I mean, we can do all kinds of fun stuff with that. We've done that at City Hall. There's a couple of things we have out on the face of City Hall that we wrapped them with bricks. You wouldn't even know that they exist. So the plan is to not be invasive to the environment whatsoever. And usually we have these at Cherry Buckner Webb. We have them in the Grove, and you just don't really notice them anymore. So they're pretty. You don't notice them.
Anything else? All right. Well, thank you, Adam. Really
Thanks,
appreciate it. And,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yeah. Councilmember Halliburton.
Yeah, thank you. I did have one quick question. You'd sort of mentioned that this wouldn't necessarily be like a blanket Wi-Fi overlay in some of these larger parks, and that makes a lot of sense. Like Julia Davis Park, it's just so big from block to block. But like, would an example be like if you were sitting at the band shell kind of around that area that you would have service there, or is it kind of how is it sort of distributed between those hotspots?
So they're distributed around the common gathering points. So picnic shelters, the band shell is definitely one of those that has wireless. Rose Garden, there's playgrounds, all the places that folks usually hang out. And to be honest with you, from a technical standpoint, where we can get power sometimes is a factor in that as well. But we've tried our best to hit all the spots that we thought people might hang out at. Like in the middle of the soccer field, they're probably not going to be running around with a laptop. So we avoided that. So I think all the major hotspots is what we're mainly concerned with. I have a preliminary map, but we want to make sure that everything's installed, and then we do a little bit of analysis before we actually publish something that says you get great coverage in these spots. So it's a little bit too early to give that yet.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This is just so exciting from several different points of view. There's so many folks in our community, even our lower income community members. They almost all have smartphones, but a lot of them don't have cell phone plans, and so those smartphones are really activated when they're on Wi-Fi. That's why you see a lot of communities using WhatsApp and different things like that to communicate with, because it works through those wireless channels, and so it really opens up a huge opportunity for a lot of folks who are just regular folks using the parks, from event organizers and even from the city. If you looked at like an emergency preparedness sort of level, if there was ever a large drought and we were going to have to distribute a whole bunch of water, we would probably use our parks and some things like the band shell and other types of aspects to do that. So from like events to emergency preparedness to kind of helping our community members, this is just such an exciting step for the city. So I appreciate all the work from IT and Parks and Rec in getting it done.
Thank you.
Adam, real quick on that line, didn't I read that we're going to have even security cameras as part of this project and defibrillators, and there was something else with some lighting or something?
Yeah, the smart lighting is one of those that's up for debate. We need to fully understand and analyze what that cost impact is for that. We don't want to just throw money at it and then kind of regret that, oh, now we have all this stuff to support, right? So that's definitely one of those things that we're looking at. Defibrillators is same in that same look at this and analyze it and make sure that this is something that we wanted to do.
Right.
Fire was really big on that. And so that's something that we will look at. What was the other one that you mentioned? Security cameras, that's right. So yeah, those are mainly event focused. So we want to make sure that police can look at hotspots, during like big crowds, find lost kids and that kind of thing. So we're going to do a little bit of that. There's still a lot of thought that needs to go into how you do that in a private and secure fashion so that people aren't weirded out by that whole thing. We probably won't be recording these things and that kind of nonsense, but we'll come up with this policy on that one and make sure that everybody feels safe on that. But it's mainly for helping out police during these big events.
Mr.
Great.
Chair.
Councilmember Sanchez is up. There you are.
Great. Thank you so much. Adam, thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you also so much for showing how an idea to deal with a particular purpose can have an expanded benefit for our community. So thanks for keeping your eye on the ball with that. Is there going to be some promotion of this resource to folks? And if so, is there also going to be an effort to make sure that that promotion is communicated to our communities who may not speak or read English?
Yeah, Mr. President, commission members, council member Sanchez, yes to all that you said. We're working internally on what that messaging will look like. But yes, we want to make sure everyone in the community, in all parts of our community, are aware of this free service that now we'll be providing in these parks. So yes, we will be having a very thorough outreach and engagement process that'll go along with this.
Great. Thank you so much, Doug. And also, I just wonder, something that was mentioned earlier about folks who've, parked in other locations like the library to make use of the Wi-Fi. Just checking to see if parking enforcement is also going to be aware of how we might interact with an increased use of our parking lots at these locations, so that we're not inadvertently creating a situation where folks are trying to access one resource and may end up crosswise with our parking enforcement and end up accruing bills that they can't afford and are trying to work around.
One of the technical things that we can do for that is, parks are open from sunset to sunrise. Is that right? From sunrise to sunset. Sorry, got it backwards. We can actually turn off the wireless just to make sure that no one's hanging out in the parks where they shouldn't be. And we could set the schedule for that. And that would be one way of helping out with that as well, just to make sure that people are there when they should be. And then so we can turn that off. As far as parking enforcement goes, that's a good point. I actually hadn't thought of that one through, but we'll get with those guys and see if there's anything that can be done for that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adam. And I concur with Councilmember Halliburton. I think it's an exciting way for us to meet the needs of our community.
Great. Anything else? Well, thank you, Adam. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity.
And now I think we'll move on to the park protections update.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Mr. President, commission members. So we have been working as a team with our legal team since last October per the direction of the mayor and council to take on a project to look at all of our park sites that currently do not have deed restrictions that would prohibit anything other than those assets being used as a park or as an open space. Looking at those, each individual file, looking at the deeds for each of those files, all of the property records, and any parks that did not have that protection overlay already filed with that park as part of the deed, then the direction from the mayor and council was to work with legal to put language together that would create such a protection on all of our parks and open space. And so, as you're aware, a large number of our parks, 42 of them already have, out of 92 already have deed restrictions. And 8 of our 14 foothills reserves also already have full protection in those reserves as well. But that left 52 parks and 6 reserves that did not. And so we, after that exhaustive process, our legal team created a policy that the council approved in March that provided the direction on how we would move forward and create those protections. And we've been working since March, going through all of the files on those 50 parks and 6 reserves that are not protected, and putting together a process with legal to bring those forward to council as individual resolutions and individual recordings with the county to provide such protections at those parks and open spaces in perpetuity. We are proud to say that our first batch came forward on Tuesday night. We're breaking it up into 10 different resolutions which then subsequent to that, after approval from council, will then be 10 different recordings for each of those individual parks and open spaces. So we'll do 10 at a time. We should have them all completed by mid-January. The last of those 52 and 6 reserves. I will point out that the Greenbelt is fully protected. All of the parcels and easements that are associated with the Greenbelt, all 25 miles within the city limits, are already protected. So, so the Greenbelt was taken out of that process, but so we're moving through that. And again, happy to report that the first group has gone through, and we will have subsequent each of the council meetings between now and I believe the middle of January, we'll have another batch that will come forward. And it's interesting. We have found a lot of little quirky things that have come up, you know, needless to say, going through all the files. Some of these are extremely old and outdated and missing a lot of things. And so if we, for example, came across a park that and I'll use a reserve as an example, and I'll use Hulls Gulch as the one I've been using, does have protections in Hulls Gulch. It's been a reserve we have had for several decades, but in going through the files, we found that there was at least one parcel within the reserve that was not protected. And so we just then bring the whole reserve forward and just do the whole protection again on top of that reserve. And so we have found those kinds of situations with some of the parks, and so we're remedying that just through the protection process as we move forward. So I do want to thank our legal team, headed by Councilor Rob Lockwood. He is the one that, on legal's behalf, that has taken this on as his project. So the heaviest lifting was probably getting to where we're at now and going through all the files, but now we have to record 50 different individual park sites with the county. And so, and you have to do a resolution for each one of those. So it's not one blanket resolution for council to approve, or not one blanket recording we can do with the county. So that in and of itself is why we've kind of busted it up into 10 at a time, to just kind of cut off or kind of bite off those as we go forward. So anyway, it's been a great process. If nothing else, it really has created some interesting familiarity with a lot of parks that we've had in our inventory for decades, that, you know, you've never opened those files before and start looking at really what it all entails. The last piece I would add to this was we do have a few parks that we've pulled out of this that won't be part of the process because we don't own them. So Veterans Memorial State Park is a state park owned by the state of Idaho, and we have a lease with them to maintain it, schedule it, and operate it. But it's owned by the state. We also have 2 park locations that are owned by the Boise School District. So Hillside and Fairmont are both owned by the school district. And so those 2 are pulled out as well, since we can't put a layer of protection over something we don't own. And then Shree Buckner Webb is built on actual leased ground that park is overlaid on. And so that as well was removed from those protections as well. But everything else has been included and added in. And it's interesting, we find parks that we didn't know we had. Actually, we've been considering a park, and we started looking at it like, it's probably not really a park, it's more of a right of way, but we've been considering a park in the past, kind of a thing. And we came across just a small little play facility, a tot lot, if you will, that we had in our inventory as well, that we really looked at and decided to keep that out because it wasn't on necessarily park property, it's on another piece of property. So, and then we came across a piece of property off Fairview next to the old Girl Scouts. And the name of the park, my apologies, is escaping me right now, but it actually has in the deed, you can sell it anytime you want, which is just opposite of what we're trying to do, right? But it actually, the verbiage in the deed says, in the agreement, when it was donated to the city, was that you can sell it anytime you want or give it to the Girl Scouts and they can build on it if they wanted to expand their office that was there. So little things like that have come up on properties that we've had in our inventory for quite some time. But happy to answer any questions, comments, anything from the commission.
Any questions or comments? Other than thanks, and thanks to Rob. good to keep you busy. I think my partner Ed Miller did the original legal work on Hulls Gulch, which would explain the missing parcel.
You can share that with Ed.
Yeah, I will. Um,
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
Mr.
Take it
Chair.
as you may,
That's right.
Commissioner.
Did we have
Mr.
someone on the Zoom platform?
Yeah, Councilmember Sanchez here. Doug, I had a quick question, and I apologize for not asking it the other night. How will this affect as we move forward with our canal pathway system? Is this something we need to be aware of as well, of how those properties are going to be treated? And you'll forgive my naivete about that. I haven't really been too involved in that process, but I just kind of had that question.
Mr. President, Commission members, Councilmember Sanchez, yes, anything that we would purchase, we would apply the protection over, whether it's a pathway, additional reserve property, or another park property. If it is an easement that we would have, for example, with a canal company, then we would not have that ability to put that protection on it. But anything we're actually buying, anything we can put that protection on, we will be doing. So anything in the pathways plan that we acquire will be a part of this as well.
Thank you so much for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
All right, anyone else?
Just a comment, all joking aside, we do appreciate, Rob, you and your team, how much work that takes. I think we have no precedent on being lawyers at the sense of that. That is hard work, important work, and thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
It is, Mr. President, commissioners, it was a lot. Now that I look back on where we've been with legal on this thing, because their job is to keep everything straight, right? And to make sure that what we're doing is appropriate, what's being filed is appropriate, the language of the resolution. One of the things that Rob did very well was he created language that allows still for some flexibility for future councils, because that's what we're doing is for future councils to really set the tone into the future that, hey, don't mess with the parks and open spaces. But having said that, Rob was real good at putting language in that allows future councils and future park and recreation directors and future park and recreation commissions to be able to still use the properties as we use them today.
Right.
So for example, the example I've been using in this scenario is we put maintenance facilities, for example, in parks. We need them. We have to have them to maintain parks. And at Ann Morrison, for example, we have 2 maintenance facilities there. So a future council may say, wait a minute, that's not a customary practice to do that. But Rob has built in the language, I think, in the filings, in the resolutions that says, yeah, that's it. You in the future, you will continue to operate these as we have been operating them under the same policies, regulations, and essentially current practices that we have. So it would allow things like shared parking with the Boise School District at Maple Grove and Molinar Park, where a future council might, without that as being something we do right now, might say, well, we don't want to do that. Well, we do that. That's part of what we do with a park property. So anyway, we got that language in there. So it's not so tight that it doesn't provide that flexibility for future councils and future mayors to be able to operate our business.
Yeah, now Rob just has to predict what the Wi-Fi 100 years from now will be so that we can allow those uses. Okay, yeah, anything else? Next is the window to the River Memorial.
Yes. So just wanted to give the commission a quick update. If you recall, there was a very tragic accident back in February of 2021 where 3 pilots perished in a Black Hawk helicopter exercise in the foothills. And we wanted to do something for the families in honoring those pilots. And so we worked closely with the Julie Davis family in creating, we already had this in the master plan. We used to call it river nodes, and we've changed because we don't like that term. We changed it to window to the river, or what we refer to these now. But it is part of the master plan to create this plaza area that overlooks the Boise River. This is located between the band shell and the zoo, but on the north side of the park. So it's between Boise State, the river, and then this window to the river would be in the park. So if you could picture, if you're walking or driving down Julie Davis Drive towards the zoo, next to the river, behind the band shell, it's going to be in that general area between the band shell and Friendship Bridge or the zoo area. And so, so we created this design a year ago. We got with the families and started putting the design together. And then there was some families that reached out to us from, and I'm going to get the date wrong, but I want to say it was 2014, maybe, where there was another helicopter crash where 2 pilots had perished in that one as well. And so they had asked, is it a possibility that the 2 pilots in that could be also honored in this? And we said, absolutely. And so, so it's really the 2 different incidents that occurred, 5 total pilots, and that's the 5 blocks you see, 2 on one side, 3 on the other. And the block in the middle is a proposed piece of public art that the surviving widows are working closely with some other folks in raising the money to actually build that, to come up with an idea and work with our arts and history team to design a piece of art that will be that centerpiece in the plaza area. So each of those blocks will have the name of a pilot. They have the art piece in the center, and then it's just kind of a nice sitting area that will give a view out to the river. So I just wanted to bring that to you, let you know it's happening. The construction on this is supposed to start next month, and we'll finish up sometime in more than likely in late spring. Again, all this contingent on weather and things like that. So I just wanted to get you an update. So I'm happy to answer any questions if any commission has any.
Understood. Thank you, Doug. Any questions? Comments from the online folks? Okay. Thanks, Doug. And I do think we've got a potential executive session.
We do. We have one item for executive session to discuss with the commission.
Okay. And so I would take a motion to enter executive session.
Okay, so pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061C, to acquire an interest in real property which is not owned by a public agency, and Idaho Code 74-2061F, to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated, but imminently likely to be litigated. Could we have that executive session, please?
Second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Okay.
do roll call.
Roll call vote.
Faber. Carter,
Aye.
Johnson. Aye. Mazu. Raber. Resiska,
Aye.
Stidham,
Aye.
Urban. Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries, and we are in executive session.
A motion that we end executive session.
Second.
Okay. A roll call vote.
Faber. Carter,
Aye.
Johnson. Aye. Mazu. Raber. Resiska. Stidham,
Aye.
Urban.
Aye.
Okay. So, yeah, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. We're adjourned.